Indian nationalism was a powerful force that swept across the subcontinent. It emerged in the 19th century, a time of great change and upheaval. This movement sought to free India from British rule, which had imposed its will on the Indian people for decades. It aimed to create a united and independent nation where Indians could govern themselves and determine their own future. The movement drew strength from diverse groups. These groups included Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, and others, all united by a common goal. Nationalism was fueled by several factors, including economic exploitation and social injustices. British colonialism led to economic exploitation, draining India's wealth and resources. It also resulted in the suppression of Indian culture, traditions, and languages, which further fueled the desire for independence. The desire for self-rule was strong and unwavering among the Indian populace. Indians wanted to control their own destiny and shape their own future without foreign interference. The Indian Rebellion of 1857 was a turning point in the struggle for independence. It showed the growing resentment against British rule and the willingness of Indians to fight for their freedom. The rebellion was brutally suppressed, but it ignited a spark that would not be extinguished. However, it ignited the spirit of resistance and laid the groundwork for future movements. The formation of the Indian National Congress in 1885 was significant, providing a platform for nationalist leaders. It provided a platform for nationalist leaders to voice their demands and organize the struggle for independence. It advocated for greater autonomy and eventually complete independence from British rule. The journey of Indian nationalism was long and complex, marked by numerous struggles and sacrifices. It involved different phases and approaches, from peaceful protests to armed resistance. However, the goal remained the same: a free and independent India where its people could live with dignity and self-respect. The 1857 Sepoy Mutiny, also known as the First War of Independence, was a watershed moment. It started as a mutiny of sepoys. These were Indian soldiers in the British East India Company's army. The immediate cause was the introduction of controversial rifle cartridges. These cartridges were greased with animal fat. This was offensive to both Hindu and Muslim soldiers. It violated their religious beliefs. The mutiny quickly spread. It transformed into a wider rebellion. Civilians joined the fight. They were angered by British policies. These policies included high taxes and the annexation of Indian states. The rebellion lacked unified leadership. It was eventually crushed by the British. The consequences were severe. The British Crown took direct control of India. The East India Company was dissolved. Despite its failure, the 1857 uprising was crucial. It exposed the vulnerabilities of British rule. It instilled a sense of resistance in the Indian psyche. It marked the beginning of organized nationalist sentiment. The period after 1857 saw the rise of moderate nationalism, a significant shift in the Indian freedom struggle. Leaders like Dadabhai Naoroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale and Feroze Shah Mehta dominated this phase, steering the movement with their vision and strategies. They believed in achieving independence through gradual and constitutional means, emphasizing dialogue and negotiation over confrontation. The moderates had faith in the British sense of justice, hoping that their appeals would lead to fair treatment and reforms. They sought greater representation for Indians within the existing colonial framework, aiming to influence policies from within. They demanded reforms in the administration, the legislative councils, and the civil services, pushing for a more inclusive governance structure. Dadabhai Naoroji, known as the Grand Old Man of India, highlighted the economic exploitation of India under British rule, bringing attention to the financial drain. He put forward the drain of wealth theory, which argued that British policies were systematically depleting India's resources. This theory explained how British policies led to the transfer of resources from India to Britain, impoverishing the Indian economy. The moderates used petitions, delegations, and appeals to the British government, believing in the power of persuasion and reason. They believed in educating the British public about Indian grievances, hoping to garner support for their cause from within Britain. They also focused on social reform, addressing issues that affected the daily lives of Indians. This included advocating for widow remarriage and the abolition of sati, aiming to modernize and uplift Indian society. While the moderates achieved some success in raising awareness, they were criticized for their slow and accommodating approach, which some felt was too lenient. Their faith in British good intentions would soon be tested as the nationalist movement entered a more radical phase, setting the stage for a more assertive struggle for independence. By the turn of the 20th century, a new generation of nationalist leaders emerged, bringing with them a fresh wave of energy and determination. These leaders were not content with the slow and steady approach of their predecessors. They were known as the extremists, or the radicals, a group that believed in more direct and immediate action to achieve their goals. They challenged the moderate approach, arguing that it was too passive and ineffective in the face of British colonial rule. Leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, and Lala Lajpat Rai advocated for more assertive methods, believing that only through bold actions could true independence be achieved. The extremists believed that freedom could only be achieved through direct action and self-sacrifice. They organized protests, boycotts, and other forms of civil disobedience to challenge British authority. They were critical of the British government, openly condemning its policies and actions. They rejected the idea of appealing for concessions, believing that true independence could not be negotiated but had to be demanded. They called for complete Swaraj, or self-rule, a concept that resonated deeply with the Indian populace. The partition of Bengal in 1905 proved to be a turning point, igniting widespread anger and resistance. The British government divided the province along religious lines, a move seen as an attempt to weaken the growing nationalist movement. This was seen as an attempt to weaken the nationalist movement. It backfired spectacularly. It led to widespread protests and a surge in nationalist sentiment, uniting people across different regions and communities. The Swadeshi movement emerged as a powerful expression of resistance, encouraging Indians to take pride in their own products and reject foreign goods. This movement promoted the boycott of British goods, urging people to support local artisans and industries. It encouraged the use of Indian-made products, fostering a sense of economic independence. It aimed to make India economically self-reliant, reducing dependence on British imports. The extremist phase marked a significant shift in the nationalist movement, bringing a new sense of urgency and determination. It instilled a sense of urgency and self-reliance, inspiring many to join the cause. It paved the way for more radical methods of resistance, setting the stage for future struggles. It also laid the groundwork for the mass movements that would characterize the Gandhian era, ultimately leading to India's independence. As the struggle for independence intensified, the Indian populace began to mobilize on an unprecedented scale. People from all walks of life, young and old, joined hands in a unified effort. They were inspired by the principles of non-violent resistance, championed by leaders like Mahatma Gandhi. The power of peaceful protest and civil disobedience became the cornerstone of the movement. With each passing day, the resolve of the masses grew stronger and their collective voice became impossible to ignore. This was a time when the spirit of India shone brightest, as ordinary citizens became extraordinary heroes in the fight for freedom. As the Second World War drew to a close, the demand for Indian independence reached a fever pitch. The British government, weakened by the war, could no longer ignore the calls for freedom. In 1942, the Quit India movement, led by Mahatma Gandhi, galvanized the nation. Despite severe repression, the movement's impact was undeniable. By 1947, the British had no choice but to negotiate India's independence. Finally, on August 15th, India emerged as a free nation, ending centuries of colonial rule. However, independence came with a heavy price. The subcontinent was partitioned into two nations, India and Pakistan. This division led to one of the largest mass migrations in history, accompanied by widespread violence and loss. Millions were uprooted from their homes and countless lives were lost. The scars of partition left deep wounds that would take decades to heal. Yet amidst the turmoil, India began its journey as a sovereign nation, determined to forge a new path. In the years following independence, India faced numerous challenges. The task of nation-building was immense. Under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister, the country embarked on a path of modernization and development. The adoption of a democratic constitution, land reforms, and industrialization were pivotal in shaping the nation's future. Despite the hurdles, India's resilience and spirit of unity shone through, laying the foundation for a strong and vibrant democracy. Today, Indian nationalism has evolved, reflecting the aspirations of a new generation. The nation stands as a testament to the enduring spirit of its people. Economic growth, technological advancements, and cultural renaissance mark India's journey in the 21st century. The legacy of the freedom struggle continues to inspire, reminding us of the sacrifices made and the dreams envisioned. As India moves forward, the essence of nationalism remains rooted in the values of unity, diversity, and progress.